Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Some marriages end quietly, with distance growing until love just fizzles out. Others, they go down in flames so loud you can hear the crackling through Instagram notifications. Today on rSpace, when your moment of weakness has an Instagram handle. My cheating wife's affair partner tagged her in an Instagram post. I exposed her secret on her own Instagram account. I discovered that my wife has been cheating on me, and I'm absolutely furious. I feel so many emotions at the same time. I feel defeated, and I feel so angry. I want to lash out and yell at her and break things. But the whole situation is so sad that I'd rather just find somewhere quiet to sit and really take in how everything I did as a husband didn't mean anything at the end of the day. Even if you want to be husband of the decade and you do absolutely everything right, a woman who wants to collect a dick from outside your marriage will do that, simply because she has no reason to try and consider your feelings. I, 36 male, have been married to Kendra, 35 female, for 8 years, and we have one younger child. Just like so many other people who post here, I really thought that we had a good relationship. People always said that they were jealous of the way we looked together, and I can admit that we made a very good couple. We had only the regular amount of fights that you'd expect a good couple to have. Besides that, we were almost always on good terms. So it made it extra easy to feel secure in the situation of things. I never thought for a second that Kendra would cheat on me. It never seemed like the kind of thing she'd do to me. Now I know that was very wishful thinking, and I've learned a very good lesson from it. Here's the thing. I dated quite a bit before I met her and eventually realized that she was the one for me. And in those times, I dealt with a lot of insecurities and jealousy, and even though it took me quite a lot of time, I eventually managed to work through some of my weaker points. Obviously, I still feel those emotions, but in moments when most people will agree that they're more appropriate, I won't flip out just because a man is talking to my wife. That's why up to this point, I've never had any real strong reason to suspect that my wife is cheating on me. I won't see her texting someone and smiling and automatically assume that it is another man. I also don't feel the need to snoop in her phone or stalk her for any reason. Not being overly insecure helps me because her work takes her traveling quite a bit, sometimes for weeks at a time. In the case where I found out that she was having an affair, she had traveled to another state and she was going to be there for 10 days. I considered myself to be an intense lover, so when my wife was gone, I missed her intensely. I tried to video call her when I could, and I made sure to get her to send me as many pictures as she could. I knew she was going to be busy on the trip though, so I tried not to be in her space too often. We called enough for me to know that she was actually working and alone in this particular trip, but I'm sometimes wonder if it was always like that and whether some of those other trips had been lies so she could rendezvous with her affair partner. There was one night when she wasn't responding to me the way she usually would, and eventually the responses died out entirely. It was later at night and I didn't get a response from her until the very next morning. But before that point came around, I decided to take a look at her Instagram. Initially, it was to see if she posted any stories that would better explain where she was at the time. But then after that, I just decided to scroll down her page just to look at pictures of her and reminisce a bit. And then I made the life-changing decision to click on the tab on her Instagram that shows me posts that she had been tagged in, simply because I was curious. That was the point that everything fell apart. A lot of those posts were regular, like a high school reunion, weddings and birthdays of friends, and other random things. However, one of the more recent tags was her on the beach with a guy whose name I assume is Malik, based on his Instagram handle. He was shirtless and he had his arm around her and she was smiling. I knew nothing about this guy and she was the only person I knew who was following him. It didn't seem right to me, and going through his page, I could tell he was probably a few years younger and still living a very fast life. The caption for the post was just something generic about the beach. On its own, it wasn't enough for me to instantly say she was cheating, but it was certainly enough for me to be very concerned that she might be, because they were too close in the picture, and despite the fact that I try not to be insecure, it triggered me. The post was from 2 months ago, and she never told me that she had gone to the beach with anyone. I could clearly tell it wasn't a dramatically old picture either, because it had the hairstyle that she had started wearing this very year. Because I didn't want to have to confront Kendra and say that I suspected she had been cheating when I could be very wrong, I decided to do my own investigations to figure out what was going on. The first thing I did was to check my personal calendar to see what had been happening on the day the post was made 2 months ago. With the way I use Instagram, I know that the pictures might not have been necessarily been taken on that day, but there was a good chance that it was taken nothing more than a week before that. So I looked at my calendar and I did my absolute best to figure out where she had been during that time. She hadn't gone on a work trip, but after looking through messages and pictures, trying to piece things together, it seemed like it was the day she told me she was going to see a friend from her high school days who was in town. If he was actually the high school friend she was talking about, it might have been a bit better, even though the picture was a bit too close for comfort for me considering he was shirtless and she was wearing a bikini. But even if he was that friend, it didn't explain why she didn't tell me that they went to the beach. So the next thing I chose to do was pour through her Facebook and LinkedIn to see if I could find evidence that a Malik that she went to school with. Funny enough, I found him as her friend on Facebook, but the high school he had listed on his profile was entirely different. At that point, I realized that she had given me a cover story to go out and cheat. At that point, there was no reason for me to give her the benefit of the doubt. Even though the only thing I had seen was a picture of her on the beach with an unfamiliar guy, I was ready to jump to the conclusion of her cheating on me. I hate this entire episode because it has reawakened the insecurity that I've tried so hard to bury. But I guess being insecure isn't always a bad thing. Maybe that's the reason this whole thing was able to happen right under my nose and I had no idea about it. However, there was still a little part of me that just couldn't believe that Kendra, the person I thought was the love of my life, and the mother of our child, would be cheating on me. I kept making excuses for her based on that picture, but ultimately, I chose to go digging through her laptop once she was asleep, and it was from there that I finally got confirmation. I think the fact that I had gotten in my mind prepared to see the worst things possible helped. The moment I saw the chats between her and Malik on Instagram, it was confirmed. They were full of flirting and having sexual conversations. There were no pictures shared there, but it was clear that they were having an affair. The most amusing part to me is that on the day when he posted the image and tagged her, she messaged him and told him to delete it. His response was that he wasn't going to, saying, "I want everyone to know that bombshell that I'm banging." She laughed at that, saying that it was too public and my name might see it. But he just laughed and said she'd have to force him to delete it the next time they saw. "I'll make you beg to delete it, just wait." And then they went back into talking dirty. I made sure to screenshot as much of it that as I could, but quite honestly, part of me felt like just checking out of the entire marriage. In that moment, I just wanted to hop in a car and just drive away and start a new life. It was so overwhelming realizing that the marriage that you treasured was a sham the whole time. I was clearly the only one who meant their vows between us two, and it was killing me thinking of how I spent 8 years locked in with this person, but I was the only one that seemed to have been giving my all. The only blessing that I'm going to leave that marriage with is my kid. And the worst part is that I felt a very strong doubt that the kid is actually mine. I think it was the fact that essentially everyone says that she looks just like me. Otherwise, I might have actually lost my mind at that point. However, that kept me together long enough for me to take her to go and do a paternity test without Kendra knowing. And thankfully, the result was exactly as it was meant to be. I don't know how I would have reacted if I found out that my daughter was the product of an affair. It's a lot easier said than done to claim that you'd leave a child you raised as your own. Anyway, the next phase of this is the divorce, and I'm going to make sure that I'm coming at her as hard as I can. I can't forgive her for what she's done. I feel taken for a fool, and that makes it worse, because she's continued on with her affair, feeling like I'm too stupid to know what's going on. I've spoken to a divorce lawyer, and we're going to move from there. If the paternity test had come back differently, she would have stolen far more than just your marriage. She would have stolen your sense of family, your identity as a father, and your years of life. That's how dangerous her choices were. Thankfully, your daughter is yours, and that bond is real and unbreakable. Kendra can't touch that, but the fact you had to go as far as testing in secret just shows how completely she destroyed any sense of security in your relationship. That kind of damage doesn't get patched up. Update 1. In my previous post, I talked about how I found out that my wife might have been cheating on me when I saw that she was tagged in a post on the beach with another man. It wasn't definitive evidence, but everything around it pointed to the fact that something was wrong. I eventually snooped through her DMs with the guy, and that was when I was able to confirm that she was indeed cheating on me. We have a child together, and I've confirmed that my daughter is mine. Regardless, I hate that my baby is going to have to grow up with her parents apart. It's better than growing up with us clearly hating each other in the same household. That'd be much worse. I finally confronted her, and you can guess that went as well as expected. I made sure that our daughter was asleep before I did. I didn't decide to make a big game of it, and instead, I just walked up to her and asked her who Malik was. She seemed shocked, but tried to play it off, saying that she didn't know Malik. She asked why I was asking, and I told her that I knew that she and Malik were having an affair. She denied it instantly, and it pissed me off so bad because we both knew what the truth was. It didn't make sense that she was still trying to play like she was the innocent wife I had always thought she was. I didn't tell her what I had, but I let her know that I had proof that was rock solid, and it made no sense for her to continue lying as we both didn't know what was going on. She tried to deny it one more time, and I got angry and got on her face. I pointed a finger, and at the angriest that I've ever been, I told her to stop lying to me. I've never seen her that frightened before. It is sort of embarrassing to me that I lost my cool like that, but I didn't mind the effect that it had on her. It was just a little bit compared to what she had to put me through. She admitted that Malik was someone she knew. She said he started off as a friend, and then he started flirting heavily with her. She said she kept putting down his advances, but in a moment of weakness, she decided to see him, and before she knew it, they ended up in his bed. She claimed that she was really drunk that night and that she wasn't in her right senses. I asked her if that was the case of all the times that they slept together. Her mouth just hung open, and she didn't know what to say, because I'm sure she was hoping that I thought it had been a one-night stand. After all, she had no idea what I knew. I let her know that there was no way forward for us beyond a divorce, and I had already started processing it. Initially, she didn't say anything, and I thought she understood, but out of nowhere, she started begging. She said it wasn't that serious, and that she had just been messing around. She said she didn't need anyone other than me in the bedroom, but she has been acting out on impulsive emotions, looking for excitement over the stability of her home. She said she'd never do it again, and that I should think about it and forgive her. She claimed she'd do anything for me not to break things up, and she was actually kneeling down in front of me as she said that. It was pathetic. Honestly, part of me wanted to take her up on that and end up breaking her before inevitably divorcing her. But again, I didn't want to play any games. If it was going to be over, I wanted it to be over for good. I told her to get up and let her know that there was no fixing the situation, whether she wanted to or not. The ball was out of her court because she had already played with someone else's. I didn't want anything to do with her. That's when she started trying to guilt trip me. She asked, "What about her daughter?" And I told her that we'd make sure that we provided the best for her. That was meant to be our priority. She didn't say anything. Instead, she just started crying. We continued to live together in the house, mainly because of our daughter, but I started to sleep in the guest room from that point on. I served her with papers about 2 weeks later. She cried and begged, but I didn't budge because my mind was made up. I didn't want anything to do with the cheater. At this point, we're just waiting for the divorce process to finalize, and hopefully it will do so soon. I hope that we're able to agree on things so I don't need to waste too much on my life in a pointless battle. Update 2. I'm a single man once again. I'm a single father, to be precise. That's not something that I hoped to deal with, but it is the situation that I have found myself in. Thankfully, the divorce proceedings didn't stress me out excessively, but because they did stress me out to an extent, I decided to really take it out on Kendra. But more on that later. When it came to us trying to negotiate terms, it didn't go smoothly because her attorney was looking to get her a majority custody, with a fat child support sum to go along with that, alimony too, and she'd get to keep the house. Basically, I'd get cheated on and still be left without anything. It was a stupid strategy. My attorney told me not to get riled up because the other side knew it was too much, but it was always advantageous for them to have the starting position so that anything significantly less might actually seem like a good bargain to me. I wanted to keep the house, split custody, and only pay child support. It seemed to be fair to me, but she didn't want that. Needless to say, things went to trial. In court, the judge listened to both sides, and the evidence of her cheating was presented. I do think that played a role in swaying things, but it didn't sway things as much as I had hoped. Despite the fact that she was a cheater, it didn't affect her parenting in any way, and I couldn't claim that she was a bad parent because that'd be a massive lie. Ultimately, she ended up with the house because courts always find ways to support the women, even if they're cheating. It was refinanced, and I got my share of the house's value. I escaped alimony, but I will be paying child support. Custody was split down the middle, which meant that things were pretty close to how I wanted them, with the expectation of the house. Once things were finalized, I was so annoyed by the situation that I decided to go for one last act of malice. I knew it wasn't a smart decision because our kid was still going to be in the middle of it all, but I wasn't thinking that clearly when I did. I knew her Instagram password because it was the same as the password she used everywhere else. Once I was signed in, I posted some of the screenshots from her conversation with Malik, tagged him, and then wrote in the description an explanation of what had happened. The post blew up pretty quickly, though it was deleted just about an hour later. She started getting DMs, which I could see, including from Malik, who kept trying to call her over Instagram. He kept texting and cursing her out, but from his perspective, she wasn't saying a thing. It was obvious when someone was able to get back to her because the post was deleted right away and she started answering DMs. In the middle of that, she called me like 10 times, but I chose not to answer because it was better to have her boil. When I did eventually pick up her call, she cursed me out too. I just laughed because I already knew what kind of reaction I was going to receive, so it was only amusing. I let her know that I was only doing the right thing, which was to let people know the kind of person that she was. "You act like you've never made a mistake before." That was funny because having an affair for a few months wasn't just a mistake. She said I had ruined her life, and I told her it wasn't that bad and that she'd get over it. When it was clear that I was just making her madder, she eventually just hung up. She sent me a text message saying that she'd make sure I never saw our daughter again, and I quickly screenshotted it. She deleted it a minute later. I didn't let her know that it was too late. I don't know whether she was really going to try and make that threat happen, but I'm just not going to worry about that for now. Kendra is out of my life, and I only wish her well because she's with my daughter half the time. Outside of that, she can get effed. I'm glad that I was able to do this last petty act of revenge so she knows what her mistake cost her. This wasn't a one-time slip. It was a full-on affair that she lied about until she couldn't anymore. The fact that she begged on her knees only after being caught shows she wasn't sorry for what she did, just sorry you found out. It's frustrating that the court still gave her the house even with all the evidence against her, and honestly, that last act of revenge was brutal but fair. She paraded her affair in the shadows while pretending to be a devoted wife and mother. All you did was hold up a mirror in public, so she had to face what she'd done. She can edit a mistake all she wants, but you know the truth. She gambled her family for a fling, and she lost. Do you think cheating should carry more weight in divorce outcomes? Or is it fair that courts separate infidelity from parenting and assets? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.